Hundreds and hundreds of abandoned trucks, a virtual metal graveyard, just part of the 3.5 million items littering an empty Afghan base. But after the Americans abruptly pulled out, why should we still worry? And later, Chris Hansen. It is the name that online predators fear the most. If he is waiting for you inside, you can bet the cops are outside. But he recently found himself on the other side of the law. I'll ask him why tonight on Banfield. Hello and welcome to Banfield. Security, stability, dare I say peace? We all hope those are the big ticket items left in Afghanistan by the 2-decade-long presence of U.S. and allied forces. But tonight, 3 nights after the U.S. essentially and very quietly wrapped up its Afghan campaign, all we can say for sure is we left a lot of stuff there. Vehicles topping the list, in fact. Thousands and thousands of vehicles, we're told. Armored vehicles, civilian vehicles, some with keys, many without. They were left at the sprawling Bagram Air Base. In years past, it was a city unto itself. U.S. forces pulled out of Bagram in the pre-dawn hours last Friday, more than 3 months ahead of the deadline that was set by President Biden. And joining me now to break down the pullout and the fallout are 3 very shrewd observers. Chris Fussell is a former Navy SEAL who served multiple Afghan tours. He's currently president of the McChrystal Group and author of One Mission: How Leaders Build a Team of Teams. I'm also joined on the phone by best-selling author and filmmaker about Afghanistan, Sebastian Junger. His newest book is called Freedom. And I'd also like to welcome retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel and Senior Intelligence Operations Officer Tony Shaffer. He wrote about his time in Afghanistan, undercover, in fact, in the book Operation Dark Heart. Welcome all. Lieutenant Colonel Shaffer, I'd like to begin with you. Your reaction to hearing the news that it was a quick pullout and that so much was left behind.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, Ashley. Thank you for having me. We, members of Congress, asked Tony Zinni, General Zinni, to go back and do an assessment of what it would take to pull out of Afghanistan back in 2010. And General Zinni was part of the team that went in and assessed and said it would take us literally years to pull everything out. So it's not entirely surprising that you've seen kind of the withdrawal and leaving literally billions of dollars of stuff. At one point, Tony found on a remote base, much like the Restrepo base, a Connex with a bus in it, and you couldn't even drive on the roads there. So we came and put a lot of stuff, often ineffectively, into Afghanistan. And it's a bit tragic that you now see all of this gear left behind and not properly passed over to the security forces, which we hope would continue to serve the Afghan people and the Afghan government. It's a bit of a tragedy.
So since you just mentioned Restrepo, that's a good place for Sebastian Junger to jump in because your film was called Restrepo. You spent months and months in country, and I'm sure Bagram was at least a stop a few times. Your thoughts seeing these sort of ghost town-like images?
Yeah, well, let me say, there were a lot of outposts like Restrepo that were very, very small. I mean, they were the size of a bus. There's no way they could have had a bus in them. They were literally the size of a bus. And, you know, manned by very, very brave troops that sometimes fought, you know, virtually every day to hold that position. It was a world away, universe away from a place like Bagram. I was in Bagram in the fall of 2000, about a year before 9/11, and Bagram was filled with, I was with the Northern Alliance with Ahmad Shah Massoud, and Bagram was filled with Soviet hardware, fighter planes and trucks and everything else, and a lot of landmines. And, you know, now, 20 years on, you know, it's filled with American stuff. I think, I mean, obviously there's a lot of that could have been put to better use, but I'm not surprised that it wound up this way. I think when empires pull out of places like Afghanistan, you know, it's like very slowly, and then it's overnight. You know, it's like very, very quick when it comes down to it.
Well, I remember seeing those Soviet MiGs on those tarmacs, and they were littered with mines. It was a very dangerous place that became a virtual city. Chris Fussell, there were reports that the Americans just picked up under cover of darkness and left without telling anyone, you know, in the Afghan army. But that just sounded curious to me. It's not usually how things work. And sure enough, a lot of the generals who've weighed in today said, don't always believe everything you hear from some of the Afghan leadership. How do you weigh in?
Yeah, I think there's no easy way to leave a conflict zone after 20 years, as Sebastian pointed out. We have great leadership on the ground, and General Scott Miller and others. They have a security issue on their hands for their own people. And so you have to do these things with that top of mind. So you can't broadcast your exact withdrawal plan. I'm sure there were coordinating meetings behind the scenes with our Afghan partners who we've developed deep and strong relationships with over 2 decades. And so these things may look sudden and jerky towards the end, but there's a broader security picture that has to be taken into account when senior leadership on the ground is trying to unwind 20 years worth of buildup.
Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer, 20 years of buildup. You'd think that the Afghan army would have learned a lot of the lessons by now. You'd think that all that training, 2 decades worth of training, would be sufficient to hold the country, to fend off the Taliban. And I keep hearing upwards of 50% of the country's been taken back. How does that happen?
I think it's a fundamental flaw in our thinking that created this. I've argued that we should have followed the methodology of how we won the fight in 2001, 2002 by working with the Afghan militia forces. The militias are coming back strong. I think they were the best bet. We're actually having success with something called the Village Support Operations Program back in about 2010, 2011, where we were divesting ourselves of the central government because we were seeing back then that the Afghan National Army was not going to be a national army. It continued to have high desertion rates. It never had the cohesion of the Iraqi military even. And now in the end, and yes, I understand that we've had a large investment of leader-on-leader training. I've talked to a number of colonels. I worked with General Dunford when he was commander there. But the bottom line is, unless you have a concerted culture that recognizes the needs of a national service, you're going to see the chaos ensue when there's no leadership, our leadership there to hold it together. So I think we should have recognized how we succeeded to begin with and really attempted to emulate that as we removed ourselves. And at this point, I don't believe the Afghan National Army will survive much past October, November of this year at the current rate of what I'm seeing it fall apart at.
Well, that's just really depressing considering the trillions of dollars,
yes, ma'am,
the thousands of American lives that we spent there. You know, that's a good question for Sebastian to weigh in on. You lived with the men and women who fought, who were committed to the mission. And to hear that assessment, Sebastian, I mean, I think it's got to be upsetting to you and upsetting to a lot of the troops you worked with.
You know, the guys that I was with were very focused on their deployment. I mean, honestly, they didn't think generally they didn't think in sort of the largest frame. So they have a lot of strong feelings and mixed feelings and conflicting feelings about their service in Afghanistan and what we were doing there and everything else. But I think everyone knew eventually America was going to pull out and that it may leave behind a bit of a mess. We did. I mean, everyone acknowledged, everyone that I know acknowledges that our presence there did allow us to kill and capture almost all of al-Qaeda, which of course was the initial impulse in 2001. The nation building that went along with that effort was an attempt to stabilize the country so that al-Qaeda and other groups like that could not take root in the sort of failed state that Afghanistan was in the 1990s. I'll finish by just saying this. I was there in 1996 when the Taliban were taking over, and I remember being told by a Pashtun in Kabul, we'd just been shot at by a Taliban gunner on the outskirts of Kabul, and he said, you know, we hate those guys, but we're going to let them in because the Afghan government is completely corrupt. And the Taliban, as awful as they are, they will stop the corruption. And that's what this country needs. And so I think our strategic error, the United States' strategic error, we had a huge amount of goodwill among the Afghans after 9/11. I mean, I saw it, I experienced it, as I'm sure you did as well. Our huge mistake was leaving 15,000 troops there and going on to Iraq and trying to fill in the gap in our manpower with tens, hundreds of billions of dollars, which really, it was like corruption on steroids in that country when we came in with all of our money. And I think that was what Afghans looked at and shook their heads and thought, this is not what we were hoping for.
Boy, I'll say, that, Americans will clutch their pearls when I say this, but people used to say about the Taliban that thank God they stopped all the killing. Things did not get good for women, certainly, and things did not get good for Americans who, when the Taliban let bin Laden in there to ply his trade. But let me ask you this, Chris Fussell, the kill and capture that we're talking about of so many of the bad guys, the Al-Qaeda folk, and those who would do harm to the Afghan mission and the American mission in Afghanistan. Many of them were actually imprisoned at Bagram. Last I heard, there were around 5,000 prisoners that the Americans would have left behind in the prison at Bagram. So the way I remember things working there is if you believe what I believe, you're okay. And if you don't believe what I believe, summary justice or truncated justice or, execution on the spot. I'm pretty concerned about those 5,000 people.
It's not to overly simplify it, but you can compare it to the drawdown of materials on the ground. Again, the leadership there has this real conundrum. How much of a security bubble do we want to put around our folks that we have to withdraw? And the more prisoners I release or put in the justice system, I'm forecasting potential withdrawal dates because that sends a signal around your actions. And so, again, I'm sure this is a very, very calculated risk on the part of our leadership on the ground as to what we're going to do with these 5,000 prisoners. And you spent time on the ground, Ashley, as we all have. In that 5,000, there's a broad range of folks that might be in for a day for some questioning, all the way up to a very smaller percentage of hardened fighters in most sort of spreads, which you'll find in a detention facility. And so, again, a calculated risk, not a perfect solution, but again, we have to empathize with our leaders on the ground that are really choosing between a series of bad alternatives when you try to do something this complex in a shortened timeline.
Yeah, I'm worried about the ones that are innocent. I'm worried about the ones that are guilty because some will go free because they're friendly with the incoming folk, and some will, just like I said, suffer terribly at their hands because they don't have the right ideology. Guys, if you can hold on for a second, there are a few questions I want to continue on after the break, not the least of which is all the gear that we left behind, just rows upon rows of perfectly good trucks, and that's the least of it. Medical equipment, entire hospitals, just so much treasure we left behind. And then there are the weapons and the ammo. Could that be used on us? Because once upon a time, it was. Those questions next. Welcome back. Our focus is the pullout of United States forces from Afghanistan after 20 years and everything that they have left behind. And I'm not just talking about the hard goods. My guests are retired Navy SEAL Chris Fussell and retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, both Afghan war veterans, and the acclaimed journalist, author, and filmmaker Sebastian Junger, who joins us by phone. Also, a lot of time Sebastian spent in country. So, Tony Shaffer, let me ask you a little bit about the gear. I think Americans look at it and think, what a colossal waste. I mean, there are images of hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of perfectly good vehicles that, I don't know, look like they would fit on a C-130 that you could bring home. And then there are hospitals left behind. And it seems like all of this infrastructure that we spent so much money on that they just didn't choose to bring home. Why is that?
Well, it's expensive for one, and we have limited routes out. Much of the gear that you see now at Bagram came through Pakistan. And that road from through the countryside back out is very difficult. Actually, we've been taking gear out since General Zinni did his survey back in 2010. And from that point on, there was an attempt to start pulling out major pieces of military equipment. I think a lot of the gear you see is left primarily, theoretically, can be used by the Afghan forces for purposes of their own use to defend Afghanistan. Plus, much of that gear probably was used as part of our training program. We spent a lot of blood and treasure training the Afghan military to be an effective force. And so many of those things you see were left behind, probably, again, very likely for the purposes of trying to transition over to the Afghan forces. Plus, there's the Air Force that we've helped build of theirs. And there's all the outposts. Again, as Sebastian said, we have dozens of outposts, which at this point, I know for a fact were abandoned long before this year, that were full of gear as well. So we had a huge investment of resources, which literally whoever takes over next, if it's the Afghan government who can sustain themselves, or the Taliban coming back in, or the warlords, they're going to be very well equipped, whoever they are.
Well, let's hope that the corruption doesn't take over and they don't get in all the wrong hands, which leads me, Chris Fussell, to this next question. When I was in country in 2001, all I ever saw were groups of men riding around in Toyotas in the back of the flatbed with a bunch of RPGs. And lo and behold, they were our RPGs. They were, they were things that we left behind back in the 80s and 90s, and they were pointed now at us as Americans. So I wonder if we learned a lesson and maybe didn't leave behind so much ordnance for them to use on, I don't know, maybe us again one day.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of it's unavoidable, both from heavy equipment to small arms, ammunition, et cetera. We all remember images of the withdrawal from Vietnam with helicopters being pushed over the edge of an aircraft carrier because they were just, to Tony's point, too expensive and the logistics too complex to get back to the States. On the small arms side, again, I would agree, similar to the vehicle position with our Afghan allies, some will be left behind in hopes of arming them. Some of that will end up in the wrong hands. That's absolutely unavoidable. And as well as we do from your time on the ground, a lot of the small arms we were facing there were Soviet munitions that had been left behind when they withdrew. So this is cyclical in war, and the best thing leaders on the ground can hope to do is mitigate it to the greatest extent possible, support our allies that are being left on the ground with arms and equipment, and stay engaged so that a minimal amount ends up in the wrong hands. But a small percentage is absolutely inevitable. Every withdrawal from a combat zone will prove that point.
Well, then we're going to rely on a lot of honor. And to that point, Sebastian Junger, I know you're going to know the answer to this because you spent time with the people on the ground. Donald Trump made a deal with the Taliban back in 2020, saying, we'll pull our troops out if you promise never to allow bad guys to stage in your country and, target us and attack us. And the Taliban said, sure. How much do you think they're going to honor that deal?
The Taliban are obviously brilliant strategic thinkers. And I say obviously because they fought the greatest military power ever in history, and not that they won, but they didn't lose for 20 years until we got tired and pulled out. They don't want to go through that again either, right? I mean, they were soundly defeated in 2001. We didn't follow up very well with our victory, but they were, fighting a war from the caves of, the mountains and the forests and the canyons of Afghanistan for 20 years at huge cost to themselves. I don't know, but I'm guessing that they're not anxious to repeat that cycle either. They want to control Afghanistan and make it an Islamic republic, and I think it's within their capability to do that. And it's possible that they won't jeopardize that project by allowing in rich Saudis who want to bankroll terrorists. I don't quite see what their advantage is there.
So, Tony Shaffer, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but I think it's a really important question because every time America wraps up a war, it seems like there's some finality to it, right? Either an armistice or a treaty or something. But I feel like there's nothing. I just don't know if we won or lost, but I feel more like the latter. Is that wrong?
We won, but we chose to, as Sebastian said, to not complete the victory in a way that was effective. Look, there's a number of forces on the ground there now that'll play out. The Chinese have copper mines. They have an investment in Afghanistan. The Pakistanis have fought a long war to bring stability to the tribal areas. And I have been a big critic of the Pacs, but the Pakistanis have done an amazing job of trying to bring stability to the region where, by the way, the Taliban had safe havens and could launch with impunity attacks back into Afghanistan. So I believe the Pakistanis also have an interest in now bringing some level of stability to Afghanistan. So as I agree with Sebastian, I don't think the Afghans, the Taliban, or any of the tribes want to see full-blown conflict. Does that mean it's going to be peaceful? Does that mean our investment there was for naught? No, I think we completed the terms of the authorized use of military force. Once bin Laden was assassinated through Neptune Spear back in 2011, our mission there was ended. We should have, I think, gone for the door faster and tried to decide on how to empower the tribes and our allies more quickly. But we are where we are, and
okay.
we don't have a complete victory, but we didn't lose either.
Well, I'm only going to ask this last question of Chris Fussell, and I need to do it, in about a minute if possible. But I know you have said that the geographic criticality of Afghanistan doesn't go away. It's still a really important piece of dirt, for all global influence, right? So the question I have is, who's going to be the next guy? And is the next guy who comes in there to try to, stabilize and at least position for whatever global influence the next guy needs, are we safe from them?
In 60 seconds or less, I would say probably the biggest hegemon in the region that already has plans in place would be the Chinese as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And they've been thinking about that for a while. With us removed from relationships directly on the ground with the Afghan government and the Taliban, to Sebastian's point, they're pragmatic, if nothing else. They're probably going to find a way to leverage that opportunity. And without being on the ground, you lose influence. You save lives, you save money, but you lose influence with the governments on the ground. So you're going to have to find another way to interact with that near-peer competitor in the Chinese.
Well, that was perfect. I wish our mission there had been the same as perfect. Chris Fussell and Tony Schaefer and Sebastian Younger, thank you. I knew I had the A-team on this panel. I appreciate all your wisdom. And thank you also for all the work you've all done.
Thank you.
Coming up straight ahead, the former host of To Catch a Predator, Chris Hansen, is going to join me to discuss the reason that he himself was arrested on Friday. You do not want to miss this. Surprising headlines greeted us this weekend. Former To Catch a Predator host Chris Hansen was himself arrested in Michigan. Authorities there said that he missed a court appearance, all of it stemming from one of those very familiar sting operations in which Hansen, who often asks the ensnared suspect, "Have a seat." Well, he was ordered to turn over videos of one of his recent police sting operations. There are many, many layers to the story, and fortunately, Chris Hansen himself is here to explain it for me. Hello, Chris Hansen. It's good to have you. What happened? I couldn't believe when I saw the headline, Chris Hansen arrested. You're always the one helping make the arrests.
Well, it was so absurd, and ultimately, Ashley, and thanks for having me, by the way, it was much ado about nothing. We had known that a defense attorney for one of the predators we caught in an investigation wanted raw video. This happens frequently. It's not new to us. We did a series of investigations in Michigan last fall and winter. In one of them, in Shiawassee County, a small, kind of ruralish area, bounded by Flint, Saginaw, and Lansing, we saw a Michigan State Corrections officer, a prison guard, surface in the investigation, a 32-year-old named Michael Lott. He showed up trying to have sex with a young teen girl. He talked to me on camera, essentially confessed, and he was arrested. Sometime later, his attorney subpoenaed me to turn over raw tapes looking for some sort of exculpatory evidence. I reached out to the law firm and said, look, I have a lawyer in New York who handles these things. Please deal with that lawyer. They went back and forth. Some video was turned over, but apparently not exactly what the defense lawyer wanted. Again, on a second occasion, I called the law office and said, look, if there's any concern or mix-up, call my lawyer in New York. So last week, there was a hearing. Now, my lawyer gets an email at 4:30 in the afternoon, the day before the hearing, saying, are you going to be at the hearing tomorrow? And he says, what hearing? Nobody told me of the hearing. So the next morning, he contacts the lawyer, the associate of the main lawyer, who's going to go to court in Shiawassee County in Corunna, Michigan, and says, hey, what's the deal with this hearing today? She says, I can't talk now. I'm going into the hearing. Well, it's that very hearing. And she represents to the judge that they've successfully subpoenaed me for the tapes, that I knew about the hearing, which I did not, and that I willfully did not show up, which just wasn't true. They misrepresented this to the judge. So the judge, not knowing the details of this, and this probably wouldn't have happened in any other jurisdiction in America, the judge, had he known, would have said, well, get Mr. Hansen on a Zoom call, set a hearing for the next day. He, without this knowledge that we're trying to cooperate, issues a bench warrant, which is what a judge is supposed to do if somebody doesn't comply with a subpoena to show up at a hearing. We get wind of this. The lawyer in New York tries to contact the court. The clerk will not put the call through the judge. We get local counsel who gets involved. And the next day, I flew to Michigan, went to Corunna. Once the judge knew what was going on, the judge said, okay, let's enter a stipulation, withdrew the bench warrant, the arrest warrant, cleared the law enforcement investigation network, and we agreed to a stipulation where everybody gets the video and the evidence that they want in the course of the investigation. It's very simple. Again, Ashley, this wouldn't have happened probably anywhere else, but in this small town, there was a lack of communication. The judge, once informed of the situation, could not have been more helpful, more in tune with what was going on, and it was resolved in 20 minutes. It was a case, quite honestly, where the clickbait headline moved faster and further than the truth, because once we got into court, it was resolved in about 20 minutes, and it only took that long because of a spotty internet signal for people to communicate. So again, it was much ado about nothing.
These are the perils of doing your line of work, Chris. You're always like, right in the middle of these crazy scenarios. I was reading up another headline where I thought, really? There's somebody called 911 on Chris Hansen, and then I looked into it a little more. You were investigating a YouTube star who's got a couple of, aliases. Is Greg Jackson and James Jackson, but I think he goes by, how do you pronounce it? Onision?
Onision. Right. So Onision.
Well, wait. Before you tell me, the YouTube star has a whole lot of people alleging that he's, doing naughty things with younger women, and these are allegations only, of course. And you went to investigate, to do what a reporter does, like, do you have any comment? Knock, knock, knock. So I want to play the tape of what it looked like when, he's calling the police saying, there's someone harassing me, and there you are on the front doorstep saying, I'm looking for a comment. So hang on, take a look. I want to show our audience.
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online, and they just showed up to my house.
Okay, and they're outside now?
Yes, they're knocking on my door.
Okay. And do you know if they have any weapons?
They have a bunch of camera people, like they're YouTube stalkers.
Okay. But no weapons seen?
I didn't see any weapons. I just saw like 6 guys in my driveway, and one of them is knocking on my door.
Okay, 1 second here. And the one that's knocking on your door, is he the main one that you said has been stalking you?
Yes, he's a stalker. He's yelling things at me through the door right now.
Clearly, Chris Hansen didn't have a weapon, except for a camera can be considered a weapon. How did that all play out? Like,
exactly.
How did that end up wrapping up?
We had been investigating this character, Gregory James Jackson, a.k.a. Onision, for several months. On my YouTube channel, Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. Ultimately, that story became a series on Discovery Plus, which is out right now, Onision in real life. And the allegations were that Onision was sexually abusing, harassing, and involved in a number of other illegal activities, targeting young women who were his fans. He was one of the early YouTubers, made millions of dollars, and his videos were just really dark, very frightening, and the allegations were just horrific being made by these young women, many of whom talked to me in the YouTube show and talked to us in the Discovery Plus series as well. We decided that we were going to go try to talk to him. We had heard that he was living in one place or another place, and finally we decided to knock on his door, and so I did. And you heard what happened after we knocked on the door. He called 911. He, like a lot of these internet bullies, they don't have the guts to face another human being. They'll prey on somebody who's vulnerable. They'll bully somebody and make outrageous allegations online when they're safe in their basement. But this guy wouldn't come out and answer questions. He wouldn't set up a traditional interview. And he did call 911. The sheriff's department rolls up. And by this time, we had retreated from the property, followed the law by the book. As you know, you've knocked on doors before in your career. And the sheriff rolls up and kind of looks at me and laughs and says, "We wondered how long it was going to take before you showed up here." And we had a chat, and I explained what happened. I said, "Look, we'll stay here until you go talk to him." And they come back out and referred me to the press deputy, and we went on from there. What came out of that door knock, however, was
don't tell that story yet. Don't tell that story yet,
But,
Chris, because I know he sued you, and there's a really weird twist. And after the break, I want you to tell me what happened with Onision's lawsuit against Chris Hansen. So when we come back, Chris is going to explain the second part of that saga. Back in a moment. We are back with Chris Hansen. Chris, you're one of my favorite people because I used to just sit glued watching to you bringing these people in, right? And you'd ask them to have a seat, and I could never figure out why they would, first of all, and then why they would just sit there and talk to you. And I'm sure that's probably the #1 question that you get. But I can't ask you about that until you finish the Onision thing. The 911 thing gets resolved, but then he wants to sue you. What happened?
Well, the case went to court. It was frivolous and without merit, and the judge dismissed it. He actually had a process server serve the wrong Chris Hansen in Connecticut, and regardless of that debacle, there was no merit to it, so it was dismissed and it went away, and we continued our reporting. And because of that door knock, we were able to get, pages and pages and pages of sheriff's reports about other incidents at that home, including an incident where the 2-year-old child of Onision and his spouse fell out of a second-story window and nearly died. And what does Onision do? Not administer first aid. He takes a video on his phone. And as the child is taken to the hospital and is being treated, clinging to life, he's texting inappropriately with underage fans. So this is the kind of guy he is, and there's an investigation, criminal investigation into his activities as well.
I want to see that. I want to see that special. I can't confirm or deny that on this show because I haven't been able to get into those facts myself. So I just have to give that caveat that I don't know that he was texting with underage people at that time inappropriately. But this, for you, it's really not your first brush. I think it was like in February of 2020, there was someone who accused you of harassment, but it's sealed. Like, I can't see what that was all about. Is it related to catch a predator or have a seat or predators I've caught?
No, it was a goofy situation where I had somebody who was working with me for a short period of time who it became quite clear that the person wasn't up to the job and was not a great person all the way around, and I dismissed that person, and that person began a campaign of harassment against me, and he was ultimately prosecuted, charged by the NYPD along with another individual, and was the case is still pending. It went to court, but NYPD arrested him, prosecuted him along with this other fellow. His sister, who's a lawyer, who he told the world on the internet was his lawyer, and if they had any questions about anything, and his litany of bad behavior, illegal behavior goes on and on and on. Anyway, his sister's a lawyer in New Jersey. She goes into a local municipal court and claims that because people who were allegedly followers of mine prank called her office, and that I sent her 5 emails begging her to get her brother help because he was emotionally unstable and had a substance abuse issue. She claims that was some sort of harassment, and it got into the legal system, and we had to deal with it. But it was, again, one of those goofy things where somebody took advantage of a local municipal court and tried to, put leverage on me not to do the right thing.
But is it hard for you? Because I know you're super famous from all of them. I mean, I think it was 21 years with Dateline, and so much of it was To Catch a Predator. It was its own animal. I mean, it wasn't even Dateline. It was its own show. And so when things happen to you personally, is that hard? I know you were struggling with some debt and other big headlines about checks that bounced, et cetera.
Not really.
Is that hard for you to live out loud?
Anytime you live in the public eye for 40 years as a journalist, people will pick at you a little bit here and there, and so much of it ends up being a headline that has no story behind it. I'm very comfortable with, my career, the way I live my life, and the projects that I continue to do right now, and I have many ongoing and some very new, exciting things coming up very soon. But no, I think that's part of being in the public eye, and I think there's a certain level of schadenfreude, perhaps, schadenfreude, however you say it properly, when, the guy who busts people, something like last week happens, which, again, is a non-event, but, you can see your name put in a headline and used as clickbait. And most of this happened hours, if not a day or two, after the entire thing was resolved. So, it's the old Mark Twain saying, a story can get halfway around the world before the truth catches up, But that's part of the
speaking of stories,
territory, I think.
You've got lots of stories that you're telling on YouTube. The Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. Love the name, Have a Seat. It's one of those things that's iconic, right? And then also the podcast, Predators I've Caught. Give me a quick rendition of what you talk about on the podcast.
Well, the podcast, we take a look actually at past cases, and what's fascinating to me is that we are able to take the listener inside some of these cases and also see where these fellows are today. And it's been very eye-opening to me to dig back into these cases because so much of it happened in a blink of an eye, or you're dealing with it as it unfolds in front of you, that to go back and look at it critically and examine what happened and what has happened since then is fascinating material. And I also think that at a time when more kids are online more often for longer periods of time, it's worthwhile for parents to examine, what they're doing to keep their kids safe. When we started To Catch a Predator 17 years ago, we merely had decoys in chat rooms on AOL and Yahoo. Well, today, we're out there doing predator investigations, more of them, and we're in talks for another television series right now. I can't even keep up with all the social media platforms that predators can use to approach children. Interactive gaming,
scares the daylights out of me. It scares the daylights out of me, Chris.
And on, and it's important to keep the dialogue going.
Well, I'm glad that you had a dialogue with me. I haven't seen you in a couple of years, so it's nice to catch
I know,
back up
it's been
personally.
too long, Ashley.
I know. All right, so let me give a plug to your new show, Have a Seat. Oh, thank you, and right back at you, too. Okay, so Have a Seat is available on YouTube, and the episodes of the podcast, Predators I've Caught, are released on Mondays. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Ashley.
Coming up after the break, I'm going to take you down to Florida because hurricane, and yes, I said hurricane, Cat 1 in fact, Hurricane Elsa is on track to come ashore on the west side of Florida. But is the weather system impacting the recovery efforts as well on the condo collapse on the East Coast? This is a live shot in one of my hometowns, Naples, Florida. It is not a place necessarily you want to be right now. We're going to take you down live to Florida right after the break. We are not quite yet in hurricane season, and there is one hurricane that is making headlines, maybe more than most. And when I say that, it's because of where the hurricane is coming and what is close by. It's Hurricane Elsa, and it's predicted to make landfall tomorrow, Wednesday morning. And it's predicted to make landfall on the west side of Florida. But on the east side of Florida is Surfside, Florida, where that condo collapsed and where they have been feverishly working, not yet 2 weeks since the collapse, to still find possible survivors. I want to go live down to Brian Enton, who's standing by live right now in Surfside. You know, Brian, you're inside, and thank God, because the weather is getting really bad. And even though you're on the East Coast, I know that there are just fears and tremors throughout the community there for what these outer bands are going to be like for Surfside and for those rescuers.
Yeah, Ashley, we were out all day long out at the collapse site, and it was ugly this afternoon. I mean, these outer bands are no joke. It really started last night. They had to shut down the search and rescue overnight because the lightning was so intense. This morning, they were able to start searching again, but by afternoon, they had to call all of the search and rescue crews off of the mound for a second time. This time, it was for 2 hours, because there was a really strong outer band from Hurricane Elsa that moved through. The winds picked up to about 50 miles per hour, several of the wind gusts, which you can imagine with the debris on that pile. It's a major, major problem. And then lightning again, a major issue. So a 2-hour stop this afternoon. The hope is that the worst of it has moved through as it gets closer to making landfall on the West Coast. But it's been a major problem.
I mean, Category 1 is no joke. And I know that you're 125 miles away from the West Coast, but 90 miles away, you get hit with the tropical storm force winds. So I only have about a minute left, Brian, but I just want you to tell me, what are they doing with all the, the forensic tents and the equipment that was meticulously brought in there and set up? This is a very difficult process. Are they dismantling it all until the danger's passed?
Well, they've tied it down. They had to stop using the cranes today that they were using to lift the heavy concrete. And you have to remember, Ashley, you saw that implosion over the weekend. They imploded the standing part of the building. And the entire reason they did that so quickly, which is unheard of to do that in less than 2 weeks without, permits and everything like that, is because this hurricane was on the way. So they imploded the remaining 12-story building, hoping to solve some of these issues ahead of the wind, which it obviously did help.
Hey, Brian, I'm flat out of time, but thank you for the update, and you yourself stay safe as well, okay? Thanks, everyone,
Ashley,
for watching tonight.